Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at challenger brands in India.
Okay.
And specifically, these are brands that are kind of shaking things up. They're taking on the big players in the market.
Right.
And we're getting all of our information today from an article in Effects. It's called Insights from Challenger Brands, Novel Tactics to Disrupt the Competitive Scene.
Okay.
And it was published on October 28, 2024.
Right.
So fairly recent. And, one of the things that really struck me reading through this article was how these brands are succeeding not just by, having the most innovative product or service,
hmm
but by, really focusing on building trust, being flexible, and coming up with some really clever media strategies.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and it's something that we see a lot with these challenger brands is that they're not necessarily coming in with something that's completely groundbreaking in terms of technology or features, but they're really focusing on those core aspects of the customer experience.
Hmm.
Like you said, building trust, making things easy and accessible, and then also being really smart about how they get their message out there.
Exactly. So let's maybe start with this idea of solving real problems. One of the examples that the article gave was this company called Akko.
Okay.
They're an insurance company. And I don't know about you, but I've had my fair share of frustrating experiences with insurance.
Oh, yeah. Dealing with claims,
Yeah,
hidden fees, the whole process can be a nightmare.
it is. And it's something that a lot of people can probably relate to, I think.
Absolutely.
And Akko saw that, and they decided to tackle it head on.
Interesting. So what did they do differently?
Well, they simplified the claims process.
Okay,
They got rid of hidden commissions.
got it.
And they just made everything really transparent.
So basically, they took all the pain points that people hate about insurance
Yeah,
and tried to eliminate them.
exactly. And I think that's such a smart approach because instead of just saying, hey, we're another insurance option, they're saying, we understand your frustration and we're here to fix it.
Yeah, that's a much more compelling message.
Yeah,
And it really speaks to that idea of solving a real problem for the customer.
exactly. And this focus on making things accessible and affordable also reminds me of another brand that was highlighted in the article. It's called Clinically.
Okay, I'm not familiar with them.
Hmm.
What do they do?
They're a dermatological care company.
Okay, interesting.
And they recognize that high quality skincare in India is often priced out of reach for a lot of people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Skincare can be expensive.
It can be.
hmm
So, Clinically created this model where they provide consultations and treatments
Mm,
at a fraction of the cost of traditional clinics.
wow. So they're really democratizing access to quality skincare.
They are. And I think it's really smart because skincare is becoming more and more important to people in India.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just a luxury anymore. It's seen as essential for health and well-being.
Right. And by making it affordable. Clinically is tapping into this growing demand and challenging those traditional notions of skincare being exclusive.
It's like they're saying everyone deserves to have healthy skin.
Exactly. So we've got these brands like Akko and Clinically who are really focused on solving these real problems for their customers. But the article also emphasized another really crucial element for challenger brands.
And what's that?
It's building trust.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially in a market as diverse and dynamic as India.
Right. You really have to connect with consumers on a level that goes beyond just the product or service you're offering.
Absolutely. It's about building a relationship based on authenticity, transparency, and shared values.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting with this example of a brand called Numravani.
Okay, Numravani, tell me more.
So they incorporate astrology and numerology into their brand.
Wow, that's definitely unique.
It is, and it might seem a little unusual, especially to like a data-driven audience.
Yeah, I can see how that might raise some eyebrows.
Right. But here's the thing. Instead of just demanding blind faith, Numravani actually leans into research data and transparency.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're not just saying, trust us, this works.
Yeah.
They're actually explaining the methodology and the reasoning behind their approach.
Exactly. And that can be pretty compelling, even for people who might initially be skeptical.
It's like they're meeting people where they are acknowledging that some people might be hesitant, but then providing evidence to back up their claims.
Right. So it's not just about saying, this is what we do. It's
Yeah.
more like, here's why we do it, and
Yeah.
here's the evidence to back it up.
That's a really smart approach because it shows that they respect their audience and that they're not afraid to be transparent about their methods.
And this reminds me of how Akko builds trust through its marketing.
How so?
Well, they don't just talk about their policies in a dry and boring way.
Right.
They actually tell stories that people can connect with.
Okay, give me an example.
One of their ads shows this family struggling with a confusing insurance claim process.
Uh-huh.
And it just highlights how absurd the whole thing is.
So they're using humor to connect with people's frustrations.
Exactly. And it's not just funny. It also reinforces Akko's position as, like, the champion for the consumer.
Right, because they're the ones who are simplifying things and making it easier for people.
Exactly. So by identifying a common enemy, which is those outdated insurance practices,
Hmm.
Akko is kind of creating this sense of community among its target audience.
It's like they're saying, we're all in this together. Let's fight for better insurance.
Exactly. And that builds a really powerful level of trust and loyalty.
Yeah, because people feel like they're part of a movement for change.
Exactly. Okay. So we've talked about solving problems. We've talked about building trust. What do you think is the third key takeaway from the article when it comes to challenger brands?
Well, based on what we've discussed so far, I'd say it has to be flexibility.
Flexibility. Okay. Tell me more.
Well, especially when it comes to media spending.
Right. Because challenger brands often don't have those massive budgets that the established companies have.
Exactly. So they need to be really strategic and adaptable.
And the article highlighted how Akko is really good at leveraging digital platforms to make their marketing more cost-effective.
Yeah, that makes sense. Digital marketing can be a lot more affordable than traditional media.
It can be. And it also allows them to reach a much wider audience.
Right, because everyone's online these days.
They are. But here's the thing. Akko doesn't just limit themselves to digital platforms.
Okay, so they're not afraid to explore other avenues as needed.
Exactly. It's about being where your target audience is most receptive to your message.
And that might mean experimenting with different channels and strategies.
Right. And this brings us to a concept that Clinically uses really effectively. It's called omnichannel strategy.
Omnichannel strategy. Okay, I've heard that term before, but can you explain it a bit more?
Yeah. So it's not just about being online or offline.
Mhm.
It's about creating a seamless experience across all touch points.
So whether someone interacts with the brand online or in person,
Yeah.
they should have a consistent and positive experience.
Exactly. So for Clinically, while digital marketing might be crucial for awareness, they also recognize the importance of those in-person experiences.
Right, because sometimes you just need that human touch.
You do. So they have partner clinics where people can actually go,
Okay,
try the products, receive personalized consultations.
that's smart. Because it allows potential customers to interact with the brand on multiple levels.
Exactly. And it builds trust and confidence in a way that digital alone might not be able to achieve.
Yeah, because you're actually getting to experience the brand firsthand.
You are. And it's like they're weaving this complete brand experience,
Mm-hmm.
drawing you in from multiple directions.
Yeah, it's like a multifaceted approach.
Right. And this flexibility, I think, also extends to their messaging.
Uh-huh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Challenger brands often need to be a little bit bolder,
Mm-hmm.
a little more unconventional in their communication to really stand out from the crowd.
Right. They can't just rely on those same old formulas.
They need to capture attention,
Yeah.
spark curiosity.
Yeah. And Nummeravani's use of astrology and numerology,
Yeah.
While it's unconventional,
Yeah.
it actually plays into this idea of being bold and memorable.
It does. It definitely sets them apart.
Right. So their unique approach isn't just about building trust.
Right.
It's also a key part of their marketing strategy. It's about grabbing attention in a very cluttered marketplace.
Exactly. And then once they have that attention,
Mm-hmm.
they back it up with substance, with research, with transparency.
It's like a 1-2 punch.
Mhm.
You pique your interest with something unexpected,
Yeah.
and then you deliver on that promise with real value.
And that brings us to another really important aspect that was highlighted in the article.
Okay. What's that?
Consistency.
Consistency. Okay.
Building a brand takes time.
Uh-huh.
It takes sustained effort, especially for challenger brands that are trying to disrupt these really established industries.
So it's not just about like one flashy campaign.
Nope.
It's about showing up consistently and reinforcing your message over time.
Think about it. How do you build trust and credibility in any relationship? It takes consistent effort. It takes communication. It takes follow-through.
And it's the same with brands.
Exactly. You need to be reliable. You need to deliver on your promises, and you need to constantly be proving your value to your audience.
So it's not just about the marketing.
Right.
It's about every aspect of the business creating that consistent experience that reinforces your brand identity.
Exactly. At every single touch point.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. But what really strikes me is that these lessons aren't just for brands, are they?
Not at all. These are principles that apply to anyone
Yeah.
who's navigating a competitive landscape.
In business, in your career, even in your personal life.
I completely agree. These principles resonate far beyond just consumer goods.
So, if we were to distill this whole deep dive into like a toolkit for success,
Okay.
what are some of the key takeaways that our listeners should walk away with?
Well, I think first and foremost, identify a real problem to solve. Ask yourself, what frustrates people in my field?
Hmm.
What gaps exist that I can fill?
Hmm.
What needs are not being met?
Don't just try to be different for the sake of being different.
Exactly. Find a genuine need and address it in a way that nobody else is.
Right.
That's where true disruption lies.
And once you've identified that problem, focus on building trust.
Right. Be transparent. Be honest.
Yeah.
Demonstrate that you genuinely care about your audience.
And remember, flexibility is key.
Absolutely.
Be willing to adapt your approach.
Experiment with new strategies. Find what works best for you and your audience.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope.
And probably most importantly, be consistent.
Success takes time. It takes effort.
Yeah.
Keep refining your approach. Keep building those relationships and keep delivering on your promises.
This has been such a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
And as we kind of wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a few thought-provoking questions.
I love it. Go for it.
So thinking about your own field, what pain points exist that a challenger brand could address?
Yeah.
What opportunities for disruption do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And what can you do to be bolder, more innovative, and more authentic in your own pursuits?
Those are excellent questions to ponder, I think.
They are.
And by applying these principles, you might just find yourself on the path to achieving some really remarkable things.
Yeah, it really is. Like we've given
Actually-
everyone a blueprint, not just for business, but like for life.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's about finding those opportunities to make a difference.
Yeah,
Challenge the status quo, create something meaningful.
totally. And who knows, maybe someone listening right now will be inspired to become the next big challenger.
That'd be awesome.
Shake things up in their industry, make a real impact.
It's always exciting to see what new ideas and innovations emerge.
For sure. One thing that I found really interesting about these challenger brands is how they manage to be both disruptive and approachable at the same time.
Right. It's a tricky balance to strike.
It is, because they're not afraid to challenge conventions,
Mm.
but they do it in a way that feels authentic and relatable.
I think that's key. It's that combination of boldness and authenticity
Yeah.
that allows them to connect with consumers on a deeper level.
Yeah.
They're not just selling products or services.
Right.
They're selling a vision. They're selling a belief system.
It's like they're inviting you to be a part of something.
Exactly.
Like we see the world differently, and we think you might too.
Yeah. It's about creating a movement, a community.
Well said. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. It's been such a fantastic conversation.
Really has. I always enjoy our deep dives.
Me too. And I hope everyone listening got a lot out of it.
Likewise. Until next time.
See you, Sarah.